Okay, we are back today with our guest, Vicki Bowen Hewes. Vicki, thank you for taking some time to join me on the Gravity Podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right, so let's start all the way at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about kind of you in the early days and kind of what might be helpful for the audience to hear about your kind of upbringing, your family, where you're from, anything that seems to be really relevant about those early days.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So good, bad, or indifferent, go Steelers. And really had.
I'm a Browns fan, so it's not even indifferent.
That was a good game, tough game this past weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that.
And really had a great Midwestern childhood. My family has kind of a non-traditional, I guess you would say. We have a non-traditional nuclear family. My dad grew up in poverty because of his dad's alcoholism. And from an early, he had to start working and providing for his family at the age of 17. So by the time he and my mom got married and they had kids, I was their first child. It was really instilled in me the importance of taking care of your family and taking care of others around you. So although we had a life that was comfortable, it was many times uncomfortable because we knew how hard my dad worked to provide for us so that we wouldn't have the same experiences that he did. Mm-hmm. So it's, I have this really, I'm really rooted in agape love, which is, just love of people because of their humanity. It's not a romantic love. It's not a fantastical love. It's really just love of people because of their shared experience and their individuality, and understanding that we all have different perspectives and different places that we came from, and there's a lot to learn.
Let me just jump in there for a second. I definitely can talk to you about the agape piece, and Jim Grody is a big agape capitalism fan and was on the podcast, and we've spent a lot of time talking about it, so we can get into that here in a little bit. But I want to go back. You had said kind of the experience of seeing your dad work really hard and wanting to make sure that the life he provided for his family was different than the life that he had. Do you have memories of what that was like? I mean, it's certainly easy as adults to kind of sit back and reflect and kind of see things through that lens of, our parents and what they were doing at the time. But when you were a kid, what does it mean that you were uncomfortable, or that it was uncomfortable at times seeing him work that hard? Tell me a little bit more about what that was really like as a kid and for your family.
Well, growing up in Pittsburgh, I grew up in a suburb named Thornburg, and I would liken it to Bexley. My dad was a construction worker. He was a crane operator. Most of our neighbors were doctors and lawyers. My dad was the only one in the community that drove a pickup truck. And so he worked incredibly hard to provide for us. And it was interesting just going over to, friends' homes, and seeing their parents coming back from, very white collar jobs, and then seeing my dad come home in work clothes because he had been on a derailment for 3 days, and pouring soybeans out of his work boots, and having just come back from like the club, right?
Mhm.
So it gave him great joy for us to be coming back from swimming at a pool.
Mhm.
But it was not always easy to just feel super comfortable in that. And I feel that, as an adult, it was an incredible gift that helped me understand, value systems from a materialistic way, right? And how, when you don't have things, how important it is in our society to have those material things. And is that really what our life is all about?
Mhm. And when you say that, you have found kind of agape
Hmm.
love, and that's who you are. What was it like when you were a kid? I mean, tell me a little
Hmm.
bit more. I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong, that that wasn't something that was understood or introduced, at
Right.
an early age that you've
Right.
arrived at. So, like,
Right.
were you naturally a loving child, and was this kind of who you were, or is this something that you've kind of developed over time?
It's for sure developed over time. I started the first grade when I was 5, and that's kind of about because of where my birthday hit.
Hmm.
And in that, I always felt like I was catching up. So I always felt as if I had to kind of, um, be ahead of where I really was. Does that make sense? Like, I always
Hmm.
felt like I was trying to catch up with that. So in that, I didn't feel for a very long time that I understood my individual value because I was continually trying to catch up. So in that, I really looked outward to other people to help define my own value system and my own sense of self. Where later I realized that the more that when I love myself, I can love other people more deeply and more
Hmm.
authentically. And
Hmm.
making those mistakes as a young person, everybody goes through different developmental stages.
Hmm. Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about kind of you as you start to go through your, teenage years or
Yeah.
anything in that time period, where you are going outward. I mean, I think you're right.
Hmm.
This is kind of the work and, what most people do, depending on, a variety of factors, I guess. But sometimes people do it their whole lives.
Yeah.
You've caught yourself along the way. But what was it like, kind of, or anything else that was really
Hmm.
relevant about kind of who you were at that time?
Well, as a younger person, my dad took us out to job sites pretty early,
Hmm.
because he wanted us to understand that every single person, no matter what job they had or where they came from, they all had equal value. And that was instilled in us again, at a really young age, to meet people where they are, not to make judgments about how somebody looked externally, or where they lived or the kind of car that they drove. But as a kid, by the time I hit middle school, you're trying to develop and kind of figure out who you are. I wound up getting bullied really badly. The kids in school knew that I came from a different neighborhood. It was important to my parents that we went to a public school, not the private school. So I wound up in a really diverse setting where I got bullied really in every single day. I mean, I don't think I had lunch money for all of seventh and eighth grade. So that was really tough. And I, again, just kind of kept trying to figure out, where do I fit in? Like, where I had friends, but you're trying to figure out, why am I getting bullied, and what is it about me that has a target on me?
Hmm.
And when you're trying to figure that out as a kid and figure out who you are, um, those kinds of situations can really start putting you in unsafe situations where you're
Hmm.
um, trying to make friends and find a tribe that you are lifted.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I think this is really a pervasive problem, and it's got this kind of layering to it where, you don't know who you are, and you're trying to, find what makes you feel good, and you don't have the skills to do that because you're a child, and even if you have a really loving household, you
Yeah.
still might not actually choose to do the things that, maybe would be ultimately best, right? Because again,
Right.
you're just trying to figure it out. You're a kid.
Right.
These are things you don't inherently maybe know how to do. And yet then it kind of leads into a almost societal kind of
Mhm.
um, you know, struggle where everybody's kind of bumping into each other trying to figure this out. And you said find your tribe. I think that's like really been the thing that I continue to learn, even as an adult. Who is
Mhm.
it that you want to spend your time around, and
Right.
where do you actually get kind of the energy that you need and long for and connect to, and that elevates you and energizes you. um, Doing what and with who? I mean, these are things that
Right.
I think you kind of, for me at least, continue to explore way into adulthood. So as
Right.
as
Right.
kids, this is really, really hard, and it leads to things like bullying. It
Mhm.
can lead to real traumatic experiences. It's a
Yeah.
real problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I through that whole time, I really struggled with finding my identity, and uh, really it pushed it pushed my sense of self down to a really low point.
Mhm.
Where outwardly, if you would have met me, you would have thought, oh gosh, this is a regular happy teenage girl. Where inside I was very confused and really trying to make friends with everybody because I didn't have, I was looking for my own compass outside of myself and not trusting my intuition. And it's a hard thing to finally acquiesce to, okay, I'm an individual human and I've been made this way for some reason. So let's lean into that. But that takes a lot of time to have that confidence.
Mhm. Yeah, it does. And the identity struggle again, I mean, I think for a lot of young people, that's if you're even like remotely aware that you're struggling to find your identity, you're probably way ahead of the game. Most people just are kind of unconsciously running around doing things that they think looks good or
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
important that's really not. So um, that's a real struggle. And tell me a little bit about kind of how you start to find your identity. When does that start to come in? Is it much later in life, or is this process that you're going through at that point helping you find yourself?
I think I still am looking, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
it's a continual evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as you think, oh, okay, this is it, right? Then it's like, okay, well, I mean, I think I'm ready to evolve into next.
Yeah.
Um, I had a, you know, I, my first serious boyfriend wound up being, the relationship was very abusive. So, on top of the bullying, then having an abusive first serious relationship, I,
You were how old at the time?
17,
Okay.
17. And I graduated high school when I was 17. Um, went to school and got an associate's degree. And through that time, I had a real kind of watershed moment. I was living in a dorm with a roommate, and my boyfriend was physically abusive on a daily basis. And one day he was in our dorm. My roommate wasn't there, and he punched a hole in the wall through her Mario Lemieux poster. Which, again, I'm from Pittsburgh, so Mario Lemieux was a Pittsburgh Penguin. And my roommate came back and she said, what's this? And I told her I had a temper tantrum and I punched a hole through it. She's like, Vicki, you don't. This is not something that you do. And I broke down and told her, and that was the first time that I actually embraced, like, okay, I'm just going to have to be authentic and real and say what's actually going on, because I realized that my life was likely at risk. And if I wanted to evolve past this, if I really wanted to get out of this, I was going to have to start being honest with myself and other people. And it was through that as awful as that situation was, it led to me being brave enough to say, I'm worthy of better than this. And that sounds incredible, but it's the truth. So from there, really being able to set boundaries for myself on, what I was worthy of, and how I needed to love myself and believe in myself first before anybody else could. And then, where does my intuition lead me? Where am I naturally good at things? How can I really help people in this world while I'm helping myself? And that was the beginning. And it's still true till this day, right? Continually try to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, thank you for sharing. First of all, the bullying and the abuse. I mean, these are really serious and traumatic experiences. And you kind of described your worthiness and kind of drawing boundaries. But I'm wondering, if it was really that kind of smooth, like most people have a hard time getting out of an abusive relationship and don't really get to I'm better than this quickly. For you, was there some kind of real like strength in there that you just had access to be able to quickly realize this is not for you, that you deserve better? Or was it a hard, clunky, time sensitive or time intensive process to do that?
I think both, and right. I think that I realized, and here's the crazy thing: if he hadn't have punched that hole in that wall of my roommate's Mario Lemieux poster, I felt worse about her poster being damaged than I felt about my own experience. So that was a real just awakening for me, in that how am I putting this poster in front of how I deem myself? So that was a pretty immediate, okay, I have got to really get help and evolve from here. And it was also a long journey and it was an interesting time, right? I mean, this was in the 80s. So, as I started going into a professional career and working, women had an interesting, it was interesting for women where you were either the girl that was on the cover of Cosmo magazine, or you were the girl that wore the big shoulders and had more of an androgynous approach, right? So it was figuring out, where do I fit in the professional world, and how do I value myself in a way that really helps me project confidence that I'm still learning and growing into. But that also, I knew I wanted to be able to achieve things and use my life for good and for productivity. So coming through all of that, it was a continual navigating. But the immediate was, yeah, I am better than this, and I need to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I want to like confuse with being good, right? That like somebody was abusive and did something as obvious as punching a hole in the wall. Um, Especially a Mario Lemieux poster, I'm sure for teenage girls, that was really quite the cherished treasure there. Mario Lemieux was hot stuff back in the day.
Right.
But not to make light of it at all. I mean, that's like obviously something you never want to happen and should never happen. And sometimes it does seem like the intensity of it really is got some potential benefit to it. That it's not like a subtle thing that you can live with. It's like so loud and obvious that it does shake you to the point where you're like, if you're lucky, I can't do this anymore. This is not for me. It's so obvious. I can't hide it.
Yeah.
I can't deal with it. I can't live with it. Now, I
Mhm.
mean, that's not true for a lot of people. A lot of people stay in really horrible situations. But in your case, it seems like the fact that it was so intense did really give you almost an opportunity to wake up a bit and shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say, and a lot of my work as an adult and working with women and people who are in abusive relationships and feeling very trapped and being scared. I mean, the terrified feeling, abusers usually, in my case, it was, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to kill your family.
Mm.
So, uh, you know that that piece of it, when people are told that, they wind up staying for all the terrifying reasons. And sadly, many times these abusers do make good on those awful situations. So
Mhm.
um, having the strength to move forward is absolutely critical, and having a support system around you is really critical.
Mhm. Yeah, talk a little bit about how you then start to move forward, because I do wanna talk about your career and the work that you're doing. I think this is all, very, intertwined. Maybe talk a little bit about then, what happens? You're starting to really find yourself, you're making kind of choices even about, how you look. I mean, this is the process, right? This is the
Right.
journey, and you're on it. And these are real things, how do you dress and how do you
Mhm.
identify yourself? And, I think, again, like you said, um, still doing this, right? We're still
Mhm.
doing this. And
Yep.
and I've kind of started to learn to embrace that and also say it out loud, that I'm still
Mhm.
trying to find myself. And I talk about like the how we dress as an example, because when I started my business, I had come from a corporate background And the idea that I could wear jeans to work was like so freeing. Now I usually don't get out of my sweatpants, but just talk a little bit about kind of what happens next for you as you're starting to go through the experience of really, finding yourself at that stage,
Yeah.
and what maybe you're starting to do with your career.
Sure. Well, I was enthusiastic to leave Pittsburgh for a multitude of reasons, and moved to Atlanta. And the first job that I had was leasing apartments in Atlanta.
All
So
right.
that then I really built a career in multifamily and mixed use real estate. But having an
Did you happen
opportunity,
to work for Post?
I didn't, but I lived in a post community. Yes,
Okay.
I
Yeah. Well,
lived in a
when I
post.
was first getting started, I would go to Atlanta
Yeah.
because Atlanta was like the hotbed for multifamily, and
Yes.
Post was like the king of. So I just thought I would take a
Yes.
guess at it, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that was, but it was a great, I have always really loved people, just really loved people and loved diversity. So that for me, having an opportunity to help people find their home was super special. And most of the people that I was working with in the communities that I was working in were my age. So it made it super relatable. And I wound up, even though it was not, I answered an ad in the Atlanta Constitution Journal for a leasing agent, right? I just thought, oh, well, this looks good. I'll give this a try. And I wound up loving it and loving the people that I worked with, loved helping people find their homes, loved just the community nature of the work that I got to do every day. And I started realizing that I think in school, it's so subject oriented. And I was never really good at math. I was never really good at history. I was never really, I'm never really great at any of those pursuits, but I always really loved people. So that was where I started realizing, the gifts that I have are really in helping people be comfortable and helping leaning into what I really love, which is being around people and helping them have a great place to live at that point.
hmm Yeah, it's really, you mentioned this kind of like subject based education. And
Yeah.
I actually was just thinking about this today. It's funny you mention it because I'm the recipient of an award at the high school that I went to, which I've
Oh,
been kind of.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's really kind of funny because I was such a lousy student, and not just a lousy student, but I was like a real like hellraiser. And so like the fact that I'm being honored for anything there is makes me laugh. But what I was thinking about, because I have to share some thoughts with the kids, is that exactly what you just said. When I think back on the positive experiences I had academically, there were a few.
Yeah.
And they literally were like a few, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, my entire elementary, middle school, high school experiences,
Yeah.
and each one of those would have been kind of experiences that weren't really subject matter, or
Mhm.
the subjects were actually ones that were not high regarded.
Mhm.
Art,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
speech.
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
fifth grade teacher who
Yeah.
taught us about some um, morals and values and it actually just like showed me what it meant to be loving. These were
Mhm.
things that today I actually use
Yes.
in my
Yeah.
career,
Yeah.
right? But it
Yeah.
took me, decades to realize that there was like real value in those things in even
Yes.
the business community,
Yeah.
and that I could do them and I could be good at them and I could love them and I could
Yes.
make money doing them. But
Yeah.
we don't teach that. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
We do teach subjects, and a
Right.
lot of people aren't not only not wired for those subjects. We don't need everybody to do those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. No, I think it's really upside down. And I can't remember which I think it was a comedian I was reading recently that said, I can tell you now, you will not use algebra in real life. Right. And I mean, I struggled, we had to take algebra and I struggled through it. And I just really was just never good at math and all of those things. The way that our education system is structured in the United States is all around those types of pursuits that don't necessarily equip you for a high EQ, right? And having the ability to connect with people, if we're not able to do that, we're in trouble.
Yep, no question about it. Okay, so tell me a little bit about then, what you start to get into, next,
Yeah,
professionally, and kind of how
sure.
your career really starts to move forward.
Sure. So I was had a lot of energy and enthusiasm for the work that I did, and I just anytime there was an opportunity, as the companies that I was working for were growing, whether it was, we're opening a new building in California, or we've acquired, some new properties in Florida. I always raised my hand like, oh, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped me um, find my sense of what I felt really good doing. And I had achieved professional success. So I started to develop a sense of confidence in what I was good at and how I could achieve it in a way that I honestly it didn't even realize that that was an option. It's kind of like you become an accountant or you become an attorney or you become, it's all these siloed things that I felt were my options. And having a more creative approach to things and diving into things in a different kind of way really helped me. And I started to once I started achieving professional success, it goes hand in hand. Then you start
Mm-hmm.
feeling as if, okay, I'm taking care of myself now. I'm also seeing friends who were just then graduating from 4 and 6 year degrees, who were kind of trying to figure out their way in the workplace, and felt really confident about what I was achieving, and went on to help a lot of different, both friends and colleagues. When you don't have when you don't have a fear of failure, because I've failed a bunch of times in my life, I'm still going to fail. Like, I'm going to fail. I probably will fail this conversation, right? But when you just go into it with, hey, I'm going to give it my best shot, and I believe that, this is a great thing to try, you learn so much. And so maybe you haven't achieved at that specific whatever it was that you were trying to, whatever it was you were trying to do, but you learn so much. So having the opportunity to say, I'm gonna give this my best shot. I really think I could be good at it, and I really think that I could learn a lot, helped me a ton.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, feeling like there's some confidence that's growing. That you found yourself a little bit along the way, and then you're willing to put yourself out there because there's some strength and courage, and then you're getting, good learning, and you're having some success, and you're trying new things, and you're seeing you can do that, and you're really building strength and seeing how all of these things do kind of come together. I'm a big believer in, you have to be in action,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you will learn by being in action. And it
Yes.
might not even be that important what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's that you're out there doing something, because
Right.
that's one of the ways that you learn.
Right.
So sounds like you're learning a lot, you're growing, finding yourself, building some courage and strength, and having, very good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. I think that as far as, if you just take the leap into something, a lot of times, again, the way that our society is set up, that, okay, you've got to have all the tools and everything all prepared in order to leap in. Really, if you feel great about it, you want to give it a try, leap in. You don't have to have everything all perfected to launch into an opportunity or something that you feel really passionate about. Because the learning the learning that I gained along the way are nothing that I could have learned from a book or a video or instructionally. That
Mhm.
hands-on experience I've found to be the best teacher.
Totally agree. So tell me, I think if I am correct here, your next big jump is into Dress for Success. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about kind of how you've took that leap.
So I was, again, part of how everything ties together, right? So I was, by this time in my career, I was, had a national position with a REIT, a real estate investment trust. And I was in Indianapolis on an acquisition that was going to take a couple of months. So I had a temporary apartment there and wanted to find somewhere to volunteer and give back. I wound up going to, there was an ad again. This is when we still all read the paper. There was an ad in the paper for volunteers at the new Dress for Success Indianapolis. And I thought, this has been a really important part of my career. I was in a male dominated field and I really wanted to be able to help other women, and went in, did the volunteer training. And the first woman that I was partnered with said to me, um, I'm escaping an abusive relationship. I'm living in a shelter right now. My kids are with Job and Family Services. I've got an interview on Friday and I'm going to make it work. And it just was like, boom, right? Like I had this
Mm,
moment of,
mm,
wow, right?
mhm,
Here's this woman really courageous telling me, who she just met like an hour ago.
mhm,
And I embraced her and
mm,
I said, you're not the only one that has gone through this. You are not alone.
mhm,
I've been
mm,
there and I believe in you. You're going to do great. And I gave her a hug and gave her my telephone number. And I left there and got in touch with Dress for Success Worldwide and said,
mhm,
I don't know how I can be involved or what I can do to help, but here's my number and information and let me know. So I started doing some work with them on a national basis as a volunteer. And then I was transferred to Columbus and 19, sorry, but I've got to wipe my tears here a minute.
That's
I was
okay.
transferred to Columbus in 1998 and with Associated States. And
Mhm,
there wasn't a Dress for Success here. And
mhm,
I said, somebody needs to start a Dress for Success. There needs to be a place here for women to get back to work, to help them with clothes and career tools and all those things. And I wound up, obviously, it was several years later. People kept saying to me, "You need to do it. You need to do it." So we launched
mhm,
Dress for Success here in 2007, which was several years later after of me saying, you know, "Come along with us."
mhm,
So that's where that started,
mm,
and was just an incredible opportunity to work with women and our community to really put the power of women's empowerment up front.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I see the emotion in just recalling that story, which you've probably recalled countless amounts of time, talked about publicly, right? Shared with many, and it's still very moving. And for good reason, because those are the moments where you can really see how you can make a difference in somebody's life. And to have somebody that sees you, understands you, believes in you, can help you, boy, that's pretty powerful. And then to go on and actually make it your work for as many years as you did, with Dress for Success and very, very successfully here in Columbus. I know, it's grown to be, quite a powerhouse. It's just a great story. It's really great to hear how you use that experience, which could have certainly been used in many other ways. Many of them not really helpful and not serving. I mean, a lot of people that end up in traumatic situations, like we talked about earlier, might never get out of it, but you used it and, have used it, continue to use it. And you use the word empowerment, which is something I noticed is in your title. You are now the Chief Empowerment Officer of SocialVentures. I love the change in language there as CEO. Talk a little bit about this new role that you started in just this year.
Well, it's a huge transition, right? And as we've been talking about throughout, I believe that as we evolve, we have choices, and the choices are whether to stay comfortable or whether to explore some more when that stirring starts feeling right. And with Dress for Success, we were able to create just an incredible movement here for women. And I knew at a certain time that it was time for me to start thinking about passing the baton, because I wanted the organization to always have fresh vision for the women of our community. And once you hit a certain spot in nonprofit, right, after building something, I think it's like 70% of nonprofits fail within the first 3 years. So once you're able to gain that momentum, a lot of times nonprofit leaders will stay in a situation, and all leaders will stay in a situation that's safe because they're comfortable there. They know they've achieved that. They know that that's something that will continue to move forward. And I have been always just a little bit more of an adventurer and wanted to also for the next phase for Dress to come. And so when I decided to pass the baton, people said, "Are you crazy? Like, you worked really hard to build this. Why would you pass the baton now?" And I said, because it's the best thing for the women of our community, and it's the best thing for me to grow and evolve. So in that, when I started evolving, I'm over 50, and evolving over 50 is tough. It's really tough. It's not for sissies. And that evolution of who am I and what do I want to do next is tough. It really takes a lot of inflection and wanting to move forward in a new way. So in my different conversations, what I love about SocialVentures that was launched several years ago is that it's really rooted in a lot of the things that I've done in my past, in helping to bring together, social responsibility and sustainable profit. So in this role, one of the calls to action was to really take the organization to a 2.0. And in my experience, it's all about the people, right? So we have these incredible people in our community who are leading purpose-driven businesses that are also addressing social problems in our community. And how do we help them be stronger so their impact is deeper and that they are able to have, that independent revenue stream that ensures that they are also doing good and they're doing well. Our society, for whatever reason, makes it an either or, right? You're either going to be a do-gooder and you're going to, be that, please, sir, can I have some more? Or you're going to be the person who's, knocking the doors down. So I believe that there's a completely more conscious consumer and more conscious way to move forward so that we're doing good and doing well. So I'm super excited about leading the organization into that next chapter.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think the organization, maybe much like Dress for Success, was ready for a new leader and somebody to kind of, bring fresh ideas and kind of take it to another level. Somebody with, renewed energy. And that's not to say anything about prior leadership. Obviously, you were the prior leadership, but sometimes it's nice to just kind of bring in somebody new and really build on the success that others have had. And I see the work that SocialVentures is doing here in our community, and I have a lot of confidence in you that it'll continue to grow and serve other people. It seems to be a natural fit for you. I am curious, just because you mentioned it, making these kinds of changes, and at kind of your age, over 50.
Yeah.
These are, I'm 46 and been making changes too. And it is really difficult. It's funny that it's so difficult. In many ways, it should be easier.
Yeah.
We've lived longer. We've made changes.
Yeah.
We have more resources, more strength and courage and belief, self-love, but yet really, really difficult. And so much so that most people don't do it. Most people just end up kind of saying, I'm too old to do that. I'm not gonna change now. And, I've seen that kind of backfire, where maybe then life decides you need to change and changes it for you.
Right.
Maybe you could just expand a little bit on that, as we start to kind of wrap up, talk a little bit about that change and maybe how you've been able to force yourself to do it with some success.
And honestly, for me, it was I have this continual stirring. I wake up with this ball of energy in my stomach, which I actually thought everybody had until a few years ago when I brought it up and people were like, no, we don't have that. So I have always had this drive of, exploring and wanting to be able to be challenged. I think that's the word, right? It's like, I really love a challenge and pushing myself to find what that challenge is. But to your point, right? When I decided to transition from a career of 12 years, it was really daunting, and a lot of the questions of, well, why didn't you just stay comfortable? And this is going to be hard for you, and why don't you just stay in a comfortable place? And this is why I've stayed at XYZ company for 35 years, because I know that it's safe. And through the process, it was just really, I had a lot of great exploratory conversations, and every day, and I'm coaching a couple other people, women specifically, who are going through this as well now. But every day I had an agenda to reach out to 3 new people that were in my network, but to have those conversations and just exploring, me better than a lot of people. Where do you think that I might add value and could really also be challenged. And it was a continual kind of daily meditation of this is the right thing. There was never a time when I passed the baton at Dress for Success, and as I was going through this whole last kind of growing phase, there was never a time that I thought to myself, why did I do this? It was
Mm-hmm.
always, okay, I was really enthusiastic. There were times, of course, there were great challenge and, frustration of this is uncomfortable. But I always knew that there was going to be something where our worlds collided in a
Mm-hmm.
really great way. And when you're intentional about that, I think that's the most important thing for me. And what I communicate with people is the more authentic you are, and the more you can really say, this is what I love. This is where I feel I really add value. And these are places where I'm still growing. It surprises people when you're that honest. And there also gives them the permission to be honest as well.
Yeah. Really great advice. And yeah, thank you for sharing that and everything that you've shared today on the podcast. I think there's a lot of really very relatable experience here that I could see how you can be coaching people quite successfully. You're having an experience that many are having, and it can be difficult, and you're doing it pretty gracefully with a lot of success. So I commend you and appreciate you sharing. And maybe you want to just wrap up with any final thoughts for the audience, or where people might find you. We can certainly include all that in the notes as well.
Oh, sure. I would just say my philosophy really is when you change the way that you look at things, right? The things that you look at change. And so if you give yourself the opportunity to look at things from a different perspective, then you learn so much about yourself and about the world around you. And there's no judgment there, right? It's just that continual growing. And I love people and believe that together we can change the world for the greater good. So I'm on LinkedIn and on social media,
Mhm.
more than happy to connect with people, and really grateful for the opportunity, Brad, and grateful for the work that you do and your honesty and vulnerability. Really, it's a gift. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Vicky. I appreciate you saying that, and appreciate what you're doing in the world. And yeah, thanks for taking time to join me today on the podcast.